Well, hell, sunshine, what we're going to try to do today, we're going to try to cut these bearing pockets on a clamshell engine on the mill. First thing we're going to do, we got to build us a fixture. Now, I just built this out of, we'll say, what is it, 3/8 thick angle iron, probably 4x5 or 5x5, whatever it was. Hiccups, I'm sorry. But I cut it off to the height I needed, and then the base, it was about 5 inches long this way too, but on a mini mill I didn't have that much throw, and I didn't need it. It's not going to set on this. It's not going to set on this table anyway. It's not going to support it. Now the fixture, I just drilled 4 holes in it that match up to these slots. Now there's a couple considerations. You want this fixture basically long enough to where you can get these bolt heads out of the way so they won't hit your base, and I'm too close in to set that in. Let me crank this back just a little bit. I'll show you what I mean. This sets down in beside them bolt heads, down in between of them. So if you build your angle iron just as wide as you need, your clamping bolts are going to be in the way, and we need to be able to get to those clamping bolts, hopefully not once we've got the cylinder mounted, but we do need to get to these clamping bolts, and that's the first thing we're going to do. Now guys, like I said, I built this out of angle iron, and it's about 3/8, 10 millimeters, something like that. Now anybody that knows, you can take a piece of 5-inch angle iron, meaning it's 5 inches this way and 5 inches that way, and you can flex that. You can. It's not as rigid as you'd think. It's not stout this way, so we just tacked us up a gusset here on the corner, and that makes this rigid, because if it wasn't, this could want to work up and down this way due to this thing flexing in and out. It makes it a little harder to get to your bolts, but it's important. It's important to make sure this fixture's sturdy. So that's the fixture. Of course, there's a slot. There's a slot right here that's going to allow my cutter bit to access these bearings right here. Okay, so we got us a dial indicator mounted in our drill chuck here. And that's the indicator shoe. And we're going to run that. We're going to tram this in both ways, vertical and horizontal. So we'll run this. We'll run this head down to where it's going to touch that. And we'll run this across. We'll just run this table out till that's about 0. And you can turn that, and you got to find the apex of it. And we're right there. If you're not straight, you can see it goes down both ways. So we got to find the apex of that. And the 0 of this up and down did a real good job. That's just the luck of the draw. So we're pretty good there. Now we need to run over here and check. We're in line with this bolt hole here, but that's okay. We'll just turn that dial indicator out of the way, see, and we'll run this on across. We is on 0 as long as we don't mess with this axis going in and out, this hand screw right here. When we turn that over here, get it plumb over here out of the way, we'll hunt for our apex again. And she's at about 11 thousandths. Now, we're 11 thousandths short, so this side needs to bump in 11 thousandths. So I'm going to have to loosen those bolts out and just peck this in a little bit, just ever so slightly. And I was going to have you guys working over my shoulder. You're right in front of me. But the first thing we got to do is tram this fixture in. So I'm going to do that. I'm going to, you understand what we got to do. We got to loosen the bolts. I need where you guys are at, so I'll bring you back when we got that zeroed. Okay, but the next thing we got to do now is mount this cylinder on this base. We've got it zeroed, both axes up and down and uppy downy and sidey sidey. I just got some bolts, washer, and a nut. And the reason I want a washer and a nut instead of just running this bolt in and out, which I could have done, is I don't want to just sit there. This is going to take just a little bit of tramming this cylinder in too. So instead of running that bolt in and out and snugging it back down and reefing on it just every couple little bits, I can run that nut back and forth. I can use that jam nut to tighten it up and hopefully save out the threads in that aluminum. I don't want to just be running that. I don't want to be running the threads of that bolt in and out of that aluminum 50 or 100 times, depends on how bad my luck is, because I don't foresee myself getting it right the first time. We'll just run those in. We'll just run those studs in, use them bolts as a stud and a jam nut. I'll bring you guys to this side here in a minute, and I'm going to show you how we got to zero this bearing pocket in there, guys. We've got us a tool here, and it's just a cheese grade bolt, grade 2 or grade 5, I guess it probably is. It's not a grade 2, it's a grade 5. And I've turned that down. That's just a 1/2 inch chuck. And I drilled a hole, I don't remember what it was, 310 thousandths, and tapped that for 1/4 jam screw. And what that'll do for me is that's gonna hold this dial indicator in that quill again, just like we did that other one. But I want more reach than I had before. And you don't wanna just go at this set screw with an impact wrench. You just want it good enough to be steady. We're not trying to pry on it. So I'm gonna set this in here and bring you guys, I'm gonna set this in here and bring you guys a better camera angle. It's kind of a booger to get this. You don't have room to just drop this in. So you kind of got to squeeze that indicator back, get this set in. Working with these mini lathes, mini mills, things like that are a little bit of a little bit of something that you may be, boy, I give that at a bad angle for you guys to see that dial. Yeah, I don't know if you guys can see that or not. I hope you can. Won't know till I edit. So, next thing we're gonna do is get this indicator down inside here. And we're in that bearing. You'll have to take my word, I'm not gonna move you guys around terrible lot. Camera wise. Now, as I rotate this, you can see we're getting farther and closer. We're nowhere close to being round, right? There's two reasons. Number one, this is too far from the apex. This is too far from there. So what we're not necessarily zeroing, we're not moving this anymore. What we're gonna do is move the head. And I know that looks like we're not gaining, but trust me, we are. Oh, wrong way. And I know just by sheer physics or mechanicals, this quill is essentially gonna need lined up right in the center of this bearing. And now I'm sweeping both sides and I don't have near, now I've still got a bunch, but I don't have near the sweep I had a while ago. And there we're just that little bit. Guys, I didn't even set this up. Okay. And this may take me a few minutes here. We're gonna call 12 over, and that's 17 over. So we're close there. Let's move that down to about 12. And see, that went to 17, so we went the other way too far. We're getting close. We're at about 14 thousandths over that direction and 14 thousandths over that direction. You say, well, that's no good. Well, we haven't adjusted this in and out yet either. We're gonna bring this out. And it's just trial and error. We're up 20 thousandths that way and 20 thousandths. But now if you'll notice, we're chasing our zero here a little bit. We was at 14 over a while ago. Now we're at 11 over. Okay? So we need to bring her out some more. I'm just zeroing this for basically you guys. Now we're at 9 over. 9 over. We're at about 7 and 7. I couldn't hit that. I didn't surely just do that, did I? Let's bring that up on 0. And she is, boy, mo mess is dirty. It's showing 0 on one side and 1,000th on the other. And in the apex up there is showing negative 1,000th. So I need to bring that back to me just 1,000th. I wanted to run this down and check that bottom as well to make sure this cylinder is vertical, because it may not be. And we got to get close before we can start messing with that. Because this cylinder may be this way. So what we got to do is we got the top trammed in, and I maybe shouldn't even went that far on getting it that close to 0. Was it 20 thousandths? We're at 30. And 10, oh, okay, there's what I'm hitting. I was wondering what I was hitting. And 10, so this cylinder needs twisted. This side's a little light, so this cylinder needs twisted just counterclockwise ever so slightly. And that's what I'm gonna do now. I'll bring you guys back when I get this done. But you understand, just because this top bearing pocket 0 doesn't mean this one is. We got to get them on a vertical line. So guys, this here's going to take me a minute probably. And I'll be honest with you, first time I've done it this way. And another neat thing about this will also fit, this same fixture is going to fit an 029 to 455 Husky. It's going to fit a few different ones. And I'll get her trimmed in here right quick, and then I'll show you the cutter bit I'm going to use. Okay, we got that zeroed in. Now we can get rid of this indicator. If you guys haven't ever built you a chuck key, just T-handle on it, man, that's one of the handiest things. It works great on my timing wheel. Anything you need to get a little bit of reach on or a little bit of extra reef on. So the next thing we got is we got us a cutter, okay? Now the same way, that's it's got a set screw here, and it's got 2 set screws, one on each side. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to loosen that set screw up, both sides, where I can move that cutter, and I've got to find my other. Now we've got to match this radius we've got to get this cutter set out. We've got to get this cutter set out the exact distance to cut the radius of that bearing pocket, right? Well, how are we going to do that? Well, I don't know. No, I got a good idea. I'm going to set this cutter up in here. Anyhow, now I've got this cutter set in there. Now, bear in mind, we've not moved this axis any, so in theory, and should be in practice, we are zeroed. So we get on our 4/0 spectacles so we can see what we're doing, and we're going to run this down, and we're going to turn this over here, and we got to make sure, I'm probably getting my head in your way just a little bit, but we got to make sure that we don't don't just crash that into the deal over there. Don't just crash that into your bearing pocket. Now we're going to loosen this bottom set screw just a smidgen. The other loose. Maybe you guys can see that. Now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to run this bearing over, or this bearing. I'm going to run this cutter over here. The leading edge is the edge is facing me. This thing turns clockwise. And she's just touched off right there. So I'm going to turn that around to the other side. Keep that out of there. Tighten that set screw up just a little bit. Make sure we're just still barely touching. Oh, and just all the way around, just barely scoring it. I mean, just barely, just wiping the oxidation off of us, all it's doing. So now we're going to tighten this bottom set screw up because we don't want that cutter moving on us, do we? I know that's a boring head would probably be the way to go, especially if you was hunting a specific size bearing pocket, right? And you had a cutter head and you're like, well, what do I do now? I got to match that. Well, the way we're dealing with on this is we've got a reference point. We zeroed up. We just run that cutter back till it touches off. Now we're set up. And as a matter of fact, I was thinking ahead of time, if this thing was a booger to set up, I may build a different cutter for each different saw, like an 029, 025. This 455, just different things. I thought, well, I just built me a different cutter bar for each one of them. But actually, I'm pleasantly surprised, guys. Guys, this is just like anything else I show you. I'm learning as I'm showing. So if this crashes, well, you probably won't see it, or you might if there's something to learn from it. I'm going to set up here, and I've got to set up another deal here, and I'll show you that so we know how much base we want to take off to get our squish. Well, we got to take the same amount out of the bearing pockets as we'll have to turn off the base after a while. So we need to know how much we take off the bearing pockets. Now, we're going to run this axis here straight in and out to take that bearing pocket deeper, right? Well, I got to set up an indicator because I don't trust them doodads right there. There's too much lash in these machines, and I want to make sure top and bottom are identical. So let me get that set up for you. Okay, here's the sample tool we just went and whipped up. I had to use these little magnets around for different things. Drilled it out for a 1/4-20 bolt. Use whatever size if you're metric. And I'm going to set that right there on my upright for my mill. Hopefully you guys can, you guys can see here in frame. Now I'll take my dial indicator back out of my other holder. about out of throw, but I think hopefully we'll get her. We'll see. May have to edit this out. But that's just my typical plan, is just encounter obstacles as they come. Now that's not quite going to hit that, so we got two options. I could put me another magnet right here for that to bump against. Or I could put me a different indicator doodad on it. Let's find a longer insert for my indicator. So we'll just fetch us a longer indicator. I don't know if we need that whole great big longest one or not. Probably not. We were almost touching it. We'll thread that longer indicator in there. And now, there we go. Bob's your uncle. Now I do want to make sure that's basically straight. It's not going to make that much difference, but exaggerating this is if this was angled up like that and hitting the bias, the measurement's not going to be true for every thousandth it moves in. It may move this only 3/4 of a thousandth because of the difference. I don't know, that's probably sines and cosines and all kinds of stuff. So we'll move that down to where that's just pretty level. And now we can zero this up. So if we'll set that at 20 thousandths, and then I can just bring that back to 0. Whenever I get to 0, I'll be done cutting, because I'm at ground 0 on my cutter. I can do that top and bottom. Nothing's going to move there, so that's repeatable. Now that I've done that, I can loosen this up now. I can run this cutter in out of the way now. I'll bring you guys around here. Let's take the maiden voyage cutting. Well, we got two choices. We're either going to crash and burn, or we're going to cut. We're moving this in towards us right now. We're cutting that radius. Getting a little bit of chatter, ain't we? There's about a 2/1000th cut. And now I'm feeding this quill down. I know you guys can't see what I'm doing, but hopefully you can see that cutter. We're only taking a 2/1000th cut, so we're doing pretty daggum. We got her centered up nice, don't we? We're hitting her all the way around. Now we'll run another. Oh, we'll take about 3/1000ths that time. And we'll crank her up. I know you can't see me running my hands. You just have to take my word for that. I'm feeding it up top here. Now we're going to have to do the same thing on our seals after a while. It's working great. Okay, we got all 3 steps cut. That's for the bearing pocket. That's for the seal pocket. And this one here just holds the seal in. It's not near as critical, but I still cut them all critical. And I never moved this from side to side and changed the angle. The only one I messed with was the in and out feed here. And of course what I did is I set my cutter out against there like I did, and then I've got my dial indicator on this base here. So I run it back out to 20, which is where I had it started. Then I'd run up to the next step, and I'd run that in and set my cutter for that radius. And I would cut 20 thousandths out of top and bottom. So I had to reset the cutter 3 times. Very easy to do. Worked out way better than I anticipated. Guys, that worked out way better than I anticipated. Well, I had it worked out to where that was how it was going to work out. It's just things never go as planned. You know what I mean? So guys, if you enjoyed this, I'm going to call this a video. And I've told you before, that was junk cylinder. That's sacrificial cylinder. I'm going to do it on another cylinder, and I'll show you that and setting the squish, because I took 20 thousandths out of the bearing pockets. That means I still got to take 20 thousandths off the base of that. I'll do another video. This one here was just kind of a, I wouldn't call it a how-to, but how I do. If you like it, give her the old hitchhiker emblem. If you didn't, give her the old Julius Caesar. Consider subscribing if you want to see more harebrained schemes trying to be put into action. We'll see what this is going to do to that old Husky 455 when we get put another cylinder on there and try her with a good cylinder. Stick around. Appreciate it, guys.